Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Ears to the East. Look, before we get into this, we have to address what's going on behind you, Neon. So I explained to Neon, like we talked about what this video was going to be about, and you can probably gather it from the thumbnail. And this is the background that Neon chose. I mean, this time I'm not even going to pretend that's really there. That's not the sort of thing that happens to you, Neon. What's going on?
Yeah, this doesn't happen in real life. Well,
Randomly select a picture from your pictures folder on your computer.
pictures folder. Yeah, well, like you said, like we decided the subject before we started recording, and I thought, how can I make Howard really, really as red as possible while talking about this subject?
I don't know if red is the description I would go for, but I'm not going to be looking at you when I'm talking to you. That's the problem. I'm so glad that the camera is not directly in front of me, because now my constant distraction is going to be harder to monitor. Anyway, but this is actually interesting because we're talking about a subject which we said when we started this channel, we've been talking recently about, we wanted to talk about make sure that we were talking about all the subjects that we wanted to talk about rather than just keeping up with the news that we do. But we wanted to talk about a lot of bigger subjects that kind of are there but don't always get addressed directly. And one of them is the issue of, really, I think we could boil it down to the word of cuteness. And this is a big thing in Japanese music. And moreover, it's a big thing that I think is misunderstood by Western culture. But rather than just sort of making a blanket description here, we're going to really try and sort of get into the details of this subject today. Because a lot of the time, when you look at things that are really kind of liked in Japan, there's a lot of things that are very cute. And a lot of the time to a Western audience, yeah, the kawaii, but to a Western audience, sometimes they come off as, well, the word we'd use in England is they're very twee, or it's a little bit like weirdly overly cutesy, some things, or it can be seen the other way. And some people see it as, oh, why do people think it's good for, why are grown men looking at videos of young girls dressed up cute? And, it can have a sinister aspect attached to it. So what we're really going to do here is, because I think Neon, by that look, I think you can tell one of the subjects that I want to address here, but we're going to look at a few examples, really just sort of like open this subject up, because band Maid is one of them. And let's face it, I think there's a lot of Western audiences who take a little bit of time to get over the idea of, why is this rock band dressed up as cute? They see it as, oh, it's just a gimmick. They're selling cute, attractive Asian women first of all. And so they see the image as being more of what's being sold than the actual music. And that's a barrier that you have to get new fans over. Now, I've got a lot of opinions on this that I've discussed. This is a subject that I've had a huge number of discussions about. It's come up on my live chats and everything before. So I kind of want to give Neon a bit of a chance to start on this first of all and just see. I kind of want to let you lead this a little bit. I'll try and sort of cover maybe some issues I've talked about before and get into the nitty gritty of it. But what's your initial thoughts on this subject, as said directly in front of the half-naked woman?
The half-naked lady. It's a tough one. I don't even quite know where to start and tackle this conundrum from. Like, what angle do I come in from?
Why do you think? Well, I mean, we can either approach as, why do you think Japan does it? Like I said, I've got my opinions, but either why do you think it, or why do you think that the Western world doesn't always necessarily get it or misunderstands it? Maybe one of those approaches.
I think from the top of my head, where I think some of the main issues from the Western audience stems from is for all the good that anime does for Japan. We have some amazing animes and stuff like that. There's a certain type of art in Japan, which
are you talking about hentai?
No, there's a specific term for it.
Oh, we got there quick.
There we go, lolly.
Oh, like Lolita sort of fashion.
And obviously, I know what like any art that can be miscrewed. You could take like the world's most beautiful art and there's and there's somebody on the internet that will turn that dirty.
Do you think it's because, so Lolita art, I mean, I'm not an expert in it, but I mean, the general idea seems to be somewhere between having sort of like a French Renaissance look, but also something of a sort of a cute, frilly outfits kind of look.
Yeah, again, it's a really hard subject to kind of like really kind of get in, because I can see it from both sides. As somebody, like, I've kind of mellowed out to it over the years, I think, and that's one of the privileges I've had with this channel, because that was a kind of aspect of Japan I was a bit like, oh, I'm not too sure about that. But having having the Discord and having like the community that like stuff like that, not that one in particular, but there's a lot of people that like Band Dream, for instance, or D4DJ and stuff, which is like way more on the cute aspect than I would originally ever touch in a million years. And having people come in and just chill out with that and see it for the fun aspect, and that is where it comes in for me. I like to see it because they like the music, they like the fun, they like the anime, they like the art, they like the feel good factor of, like, obviously, like the young girls and the good feeling that inhibits and the stories around that.
That's an interesting addition you made, because there's a few points you brought up there. I mean, first of all, you mentioned a lot of animated bands, which I think is important as well. I don't really know whether I'd describe anime as like the source of this particular thing, or whether
there's definitely more. I'm just trying to think. I'm trying to think more of a Westerner than a channel.
Anime gets a lot of stick for obviously the fact that it's known for showing characters who are supposed to be, supposed to look very young. And then anime is not a subject that I know much about. I mean, as we kind of jokingly say, I watched really the first ever anime I watched all the way through was Bocce the Rock, like last year. But I know that anime does have this image problem that it contends with, which is the idea of, sort of characters get sexualized all the time, and a lot of the characters are venerated, sort of they're supposed to be very young and cute, and that's their positive quality. And there's this crossover. So you mentioned about the animated side. And so I think that's maybe where a lot of people get this negative impression that is already up, is that they think of like and I think a lot of that sexualized anime stuff, again, I am not an anime expert, but my gathering is a lot of it is kind of fan art and stuff like that.
I think
there's
confused.
a misconception.
I think that's what it is, a misconception. I think people get confused because you could take, like, say, you could take that anime, you can mix it with like some of the other anime that's dirty. And I'm not coming in here from a place of like complete clean sainthood, by the way. I love anime. I also love dirty anime. So I'm not
saying, look, you know what? You laid your cards out right from the beginning with that backdrop, all right? No.
Yeah, like I'm not even coming in like saying, oh, anime or dirty anime be bad, because for me that's far from the truth. But like I said, I think for a lot of people it's perception of how it is, like, and it's a bit ironic as well, because you could take it from the West as well. You could take like Western films and stuff like that, and some of them just as dirty or as overly dirty as some like anime and stuff like that.
But
like,
it's not the dirtiness so much that I think is the issue of a lot of people, because I mean, if anything, Japan, I've said this before, you're in Japan, and most of the time what you're looking at is women walk around, even in hot weather, pretty covered up. It's not like you're in the United Arab Emirates or anything, but they're pretty covered up. There's not sort of low cut tops and everything where you go. And I've got to be honest. I mean, everyone's gonna have different opinions on this. I kind of like the fact that that people don't show themselves off particularly. It's nice. I think there's a self-respect element to that.
Yeah.
But
I was gonna say, for a country that's like well known as being like the capital of like dirty anime and dirty films and stuff like that, they don't make the babies. They are the culture's so different to how it's portrayed.
The thing is that this is, I mean, again, how everyone decides to carry themselves and what is good for them, it's fine. But I think the Japanese approach to self-respect is that they think, well, it's like, you keep that stuff very private. But then again, as I've said before, Japan has this barrier with most things. People are very conservative and button up and salary man at work, but then they can exact same man can be off at watching like an.
Oh, Howard's gone. Damn. Oh, okay. How do I continue this? Just stare at the boobs. Nothing happened. We're still good. Just look at the boobies. There is no technical errors. Okay, this is where I'm going to pause this video. Keep looking at the boobs. And hopefully when Howard re-edits this, look at the boobs. You won't even tell he went. Keep looking at the boobs. He will be back, mystically appearing in 3, 2, 1. And here he is.
I'll continue with what I was saying, and I will address what's going on behind Neon since we reconnected. But
what you want about?
we'll address that in a moment. Look, so the point is that there's that line with Japanese people that, as a general, they can be very button up and they can be very normal in one place, and then they kind of save the weirdnesses for outside, and that can result in some very quirky things that make the country such an interesting place. And of course, occasionally that will result in some people who are a bit weird. You're going to get that with anything, that's always going to be the case. So I think that's part of what affects it. But overall, one of the things I really want to look at is the issue of, I guess, therefore, is it, at what point do we think it's kind of, what is kind of the line, where do we move the line to now that we better understand Japanese culture as we do? Because I mean, as I said, when I first got into Japanese music, I've been into Japanese music for quite a few years before Scandal came out. And when Scandal initially came out, I didn't really address them just because I was in Japan when their first album came out, and just all the pictures of, here's a band, they're a group, they're dressed in their school outfits, giving cool looks. I was like, I don't know. Just at the time, even then, I was still like, I don't know. And then when Baby Metal came out, I didn't initially respond to that because I was like, well, Then I saw like someone showed me the video at a party. I was back in England at the time, and someone showed me a video at a party, and I remember going, okay, this is actually, this is really good. But even then, I didn't really follow it because I didn't see it beyond the gimmick. And then I think it was really when I started doing the channel back in 2019, I started taking Baby Metal much more seriously, and someone introduced me to Maid, who I'd heard of from a friend of mine who was ironically a maid, Japanese style maid, not about literal maid.
Do you have her number still?
Based on your background, I don't think that's going to work out for you. Oh wow, now Neon's frozen.
Neon. No, I'm back.
Neon.
Here. Did you see me?
Neon.
It's still working my side. Howard's having issues. I'm back. There we go. We're having a few tech issues. So bear with us.
All I had, I don't know if anyone else seen this at home, but you froze in just like a really look with those girls behind it. But so my point is that for us, our bar has now moved to a point where we can sort of see the innocence in things that before we would have maybe thought, why is that? So I'm kind of intrigued. I kind of want to know with you, do you think there's any examples where you still think, okay, that's kind of like, they're taking the cuteness and it's not really cute, it's a bit weird? Or do you think?
Yes. There's definitely, I've like, as much as I can defend it, especially like I said, the anime side for art and stuff like that. And I'm not saying it's all of it is wholesome. It is not. There's always two sides to every story. You can never defend one or the other completely, because it's always a gray area, no matter which way you come from and try to defend it or encourage you or whatever. There's been a few, and thankfully, like I said, my community is really, really wholesome, which is one of the reasons why I don't know why they're following me, because I am not.
I think you're much more wholesome than you like to believe.
Although to be probably, I think so anyway. But it's a nicest thing anybody's ever said to me. I think I'm rubbing off on them a bit because they're starting to become more assholes as time goes on. But there's been a few times where I've had like a few requests from a few people, and they've given me like really, really kind of cute girl groups, and they're on a beach or something, and they're in bikinis, and like straight away I want to go woo, or these look nice, or legs, or some of the stupid stuff that you usually do when you see these things,
just sort of honest reactions to there's a bunch of nicely shapely women.
You see some pretty ladies and you're like, oh pretty lady, you're gonna react to that. But I've learned to be careful a little bit more now, because that's when chat usually flags up and goes, Neon, she's 15, and I'm like,
I had one of that before, where the funny thing is that a lot of the time when you see those videos, it's not because you're looking at any of them going, wow, they're really good looking. It's more just the case if you're looking at it, it's like, this is a very aesthetically pleasing thing, Again, you got a lot of people who are clearly in a good looking shape, And And the problem you kind of get there is that you kind of
Walking on
address it
eggshells.
initially as, oh, it's a nice thing. But the thing is that even there, you're kind of saying, well, look, I'm not looking at this as a sexual thing. It's just,
No.
oh, there's a lot of pretty people.
There's a
And I think this is where a lot of the time the intention of the person, not just the viewer, but also the person creating the content, is to me the important thing. What is the intention of what we're watching? So if you're looking at something, and I got to be honest, I had one where it was a video, there was loads of girls, they were doing like a dancing thing, and I was like, oh, they're quite pretty. And then someone said a couple of them were like 16 and 17. And I felt a little bit weird about that. Like,
yeah, I do
that
as well. I feel a little bit icky when it comes to things like that. Like again, not hiding the dirtiness at all, but when people tell
do you
me,
know the age of the girls behind you? I've got to address, because this is pretty much
I do not know. I do not know. I completely ripped off a complete.
If they're like 16, then we've like.
Yeah, they're
I
royally screwed up. I just Googled it and I picked the first goddamn picture. So, like, yeah, I put no research.
You're trusting Google with your reputation.
I'm trusting Google.
You are a brave man.
I know.
A company man indeed.
I know. That's how much little effort I did. I was like, Japanese girls, bikinis, seen this one. I was like, yeah, copy paste, put it on the show.
Yeah,
I made like minimal effort.
Again, it is that whole point of intent. Now, so obviously when it comes to that kind of thing, that's one thing. Now, so I kind of, because obviously people are people, you judge them in their own right, but I kind of therefore want to look at the intent of the people who produce something. Now, one of the subjects, I think you knew I was going to move on to this at one point eventually, and I'm going to move on to this because I really wanted to discuss this, was the issue of Sakura Gakuen, because I enjoy Sakura. Well, I mean, Sakura Gakuen is finished now, but I mean, I enjoy Sakura Gakuen. I like them as a group. I've enjoyed a lot of their songs, and I must admit that a lot of the time, the songs I like most about them, I've just found them inherently quite cute. You look at them and you go, "That's really cute. That's really sweet." But I've always felt
sorry, go on.
I've always felt a little bit like trying to work out what exactly Sakura Gakuen is, because I mean, for me, Sakura Gakuen more feels like you're watching the feeder group to something bigger, because like Sakura Gakuen isn't the end goal, because obviously at that age they're not going to be the best performers. Yeah, they're good, but they're not going to be the best. And you know, I don't know, just as a human adult, I would much rather watch other adults singing. You know, I'd much rather watch someone in their 20s singing who's trained, and even if they're cute, you know, you get Kyari Pami at age 30 dressed up cute, for me is much more entertaining to watch than someone who's much younger, because you get the feeling of like, well, I am basically Sakura Gakuen, I am watching a school performance, which when none of these people are my daughter feels a little bit like, okay, why am I watching this? And so for me, it's always been, it's interesting to watch to see what they're going to do next. But Sakura Gakuen is not the end goal. It always felt just like, oh, looking to see what might be coming next, rather than, oh, Sakura Gakuen is the thing that I follow.
Yeah, Sakura Gakuen was always like the process of what these girls were going to become. You hit a few points.
Yeah, I agree.
You hit a few points there of like, you know,
Sorry,
young girls not being your daughter. And I feel like that's the appeal of it, because that's what it is. We were talking about obviously the cuteness and the spectrum of what type of cuteness it is. And Sakura Gakuen always falls 100% on the side of wholesome cuteness.
That's one of the reasons I mentioned them, is because I think, and I should have said that first always, because I don't think anyone could ever claim there's anything cynical about, you know, I mean, like when you get the girls on the beach in general, you think, oh, it's supposed to be sweet, but you could read that as being cynical. You could say this is maybe designed for someone who maybe could be not so well balanced, but Sakura Gakuen, it's never like that.
It's never been
very wholesome.
Yeah, I've never watched anything Sakura Gakuen and never thought, oh, there's a little bit more to this than maybe that meets the eye. I've always gone in and thought, oh, this is just wholesome fun. And it's the journey. It's not so much the acts themselves, it's the journey. I always maintain that with Sakura Gakuen, I feel like if you're going to watch it, you have to be like in it all the way. You literally have to be in like 100% and watch like everything behind the scenes, watch the journey, watch the friendships. Because when it comes to like
why? What I mean,
because the thing with these girls are, as much as they are, should we say, as anything is a business with the acting side of it, everything is produced. No, let's not pretend it's not. It is. It's there for our entertainment to enjoy.
Yeah, I mean, even if the emotions are real, you
Even
can
if the
see
emotions are real.
the situations have been choreographed by the people behind the scenes who want certain things to happen.
Things to happen.
Yeah.
But you see enough of these girls from behind the scenes, and you see enough friendships being made, bonds being formed, and stuff like that. That when the graduations come, and even though it is, like you said, it's there to play on your emotions, it is, but at the same time, I 100% choose to believe that it is completely genuine. You can't.
And I think it is possible to have that balance. If I could quickly say, I think it is possible to have that balance. I mean, in the same way that I'm sure when you got like the graduation toss thing and like the girls start crying secretly, like the producers behind the cameras are like, yeah, cry. Money. But by the same token, that doesn't have to be an inherently evil thing. You can still care about these girls, care about their careers, and also understand that profit comes from like getting a good emotional response out of them. You know, because it's not like you're hurting them, you're creating an emotional.
There's like a Japanese Mr. Burns behind the camera going, "Cry, child." You know, but
here's a phone, call someone who cares.
I mean, at that tender age, there's only so much you can put that on before the audience kind of clicks and realizes, oh, okay, there's a bit too much. But there is genuine connections there. Like I always like the one where when Baby Metal had been formed and Sue graduated, and nobody knew at that point if like Baby Metal would continue. So Moa and Yui.
I bet one person knew.
Probably, probably people behind the scenes knew, but they probably hadn't told the girls at that point. I don't think. They didn't genuinely know what was happening with Baby. They didn't know if they were continuing or not. So when Sue graduates, not only is it like tears because they're friends, it's like tears because this Baby Metal thing could possibly at the time be over. I think it was confirmed to be still going on like relatively quickly after the show.
But then we're looking at how we as an audience, because the interesting thing is here is that what this is allowing us to do is it's allowing us to look at an emotional story, but a story that's innocent. Because the thing is that a story that's
innocent. Like I said, if you come into it and you take these girls that you remember, that emotional attachment, they could be your daughter, and that's how you got to kind of come in and look at it. Like with these girls,
I see what you're saying.
Like these girls coming in. And the way that whole thing is portrayed is these are the girls, these are their dreams.
See, to me,
we're going to crush them a little bit, and you're going to feel bad while watching it.
I genuinely don't know how to feel about that because I'd never thought about it that way before. And my initial response when you say is to think about them like they're your daughters, that to me does feel creepy. I've got to be honest, it does feel creepy because I know they've actually got a father. I know each one of those girls has a father, has a home life and everything.
Right,
and so for me,
like
it does feel creepy.
Then. Not technically yours, but you want them to do well.
I can see what you mean in another way, which is obviously when you watch when you watch a movie. Or you watch any of these things, you know, or when you kind of like when you see a celebrity, you know, like a singer, and we kind of look at the singer and go, maybe you feel a connection to a female singer. You think, oh, she's cute, or her personality makes me happy. You know, you see behind the scenes stuff with like Miku from Maid or Akane or something, and then you think, oh, just seeing their videos kind of makes me happy because I just find their personality very warming. At the same point, any of those people, and I'm going to cause controversy, but any of those people could have a boyfriend. And it's like, you know, they could have someone else in their life, and so that could be kind. So in a way, I think
lies. Misa is waiting for me. I know it. I can feel it in my bones.
Like Dave is just spinning slowly in his chair, vibrating right now. But there is that whole thing where it's not particularly harmful to vicariously enjoy as though you knew someone. So I get that. It's not the way I would have thought about that, but now you explain that, I can see that makes sense. I do think though this comes back to the thing though, which is that it's okay to enjoy innocence, partly because in the same way that maid cafes are enjoyable because of the fact that it's people just trying to get away from anything harsh. It's like, take me to a place where just for like a half an hour, I can just be in a place where everything's kind of harmless and sweet and everyone gets on. I kind of see, therefore that makes sense. Show me a bit of drama that no one gets hurt and everyone's got a future.
I don't think I could go. I can't go to Maid cafes innocently. I've been corrupted too much by online things to go into a
That's
Maid cafe and
see,
take that
that's
seriously.
I think if you, I mean, I've said this before. I've taken, I mean, I don't go to Maid Cafe on my own because I ain't got the money, time, or particularly inclination. But
This is why
every
Howard's
time,
always skin. Love hotels, he tells us.
every time I have a friend come from overseas, and they want to see Japanese culture. I always just say, look, I'm going to throw a Maid Cafe in here, and they're always usually quite excited about it. But the thing is that it is, it's a weird thing. But I think it would decorrupt you. I honestly think it would decorrupt you because of the fact that it's very bizarre to go to a place like that. And it's just kind of wholesome, innocent, is a little bit overly twee. It's a bit much, but if you just kind of accept it, it's and the thing is as well is when you see the girls, you kind of know that the girls in general, they're usually like, yeah, they're not children. They're, you know, early 20s and stuff like that. And so it's all a very well established act that you're walking into.
See, this is why you don't want me to come to Japan, because I guarantee you, you'll take me to this and I'll be like decorrupted. And I'll be like, that was very nice and very wholesome. And then I'll put my arm around you and go, let's go and eat sushi up a naked Asian lady. You know, the very next second.
But that's the thing. There, if anything, do you know what? I would say that very comment is why I consider you to be wholesome. Because you can discern the difference between something that is cute and something that's sexy. You can find something hot and sexy and something cute and have them in both different places in your mind. You can look at sort of like a woman and find her cute, and another woman find her sexy, and it doesn't have to be conflated.
To be honest,
I'm sure there's a Venn diagram. There are places in the middle, but you know, it doesn't have to be. And I think that's the issue, is that trying to sort of explain to people is that you can have things that are cute, but it doesn't have to be sexual just because it's cute. It can just be cute.
I think, like, leading on to the point, which obviously one of the reasons why I picked this picture as well, which is what you said before. Like, how old are these girls? I honestly have no idea.
I am genuinely, I'm going to say it. I was wondering whether I should bring this up. I'm genuinely concerned about the positioning of the heart over that girl's crotch area. That's the one bit that gets me.
Yeah. They do that all the time though, in like magazines and stuff. I've seen that so many times. They put like little hearts and dots and stuff around it. I'm like, why? She's covered. But then it makes you think, but was she? Yeah, it's more like it kind of like fucks with your head a little bit. But
I think it's to make sure that you don't have a right to know if she's shaved or not. I think that's probably what. Fucking hell. That's what it is. And this is the whole thing. This is exactly the sort of conversation that you don't want to be having. And I feel anyway, carry on.
Well, you know, after that comment, you know, fuck me. I didn't think I was coming out of this conversation as the wholesome one. Fuck me.
This time.
But yeah, there are some stuff that I've seen, like, again, in this range where I've seen young girl in swimwear, and I know that's like another subject probably all within itself, with like the swimsuit magazines and stuff that they have over there, which can be fair or can be a little bit on the young side. And I feel like that is probably, for like a Western perception, is probably where that kind of like creepiness and all that stems from a little bit as well.
I think some of that, because obviously I'm assuming that they're all, you know, perfectly legal age, but I think my understanding as well is that there's this sort of issue partly with the fact that, well, I mean, one of the nice things is that Japanese women as a general tend to look much younger than they actually are, which is kind of nice, and that they keep a very youthful look. But obviously that can, certainly to an outside person who's not really good at judging the ages, not that I'm particularly great.
I've fallen into that trap so many times.
It can be like, oh God, this girl on this magazine, what is she, like 14 years old? Is that actually, no, she's 30. I mean, okay.
Rachel, oh, she looks about 19. She's like near 40.
But do you know, the other thing as well, though, I do accept, I have heard the argument that there are a lot of these magazines that try to make the girls look younger. I don't know if I agree with that. I think that's a holdover again from this anime thing. And I do know anime's got a problem where they'll take characters and they try to make them look doughy-eyed and cute and younger. And that's a whole conversation that I'm not going to get into, because I've spoken to people who know more about anime and I don't really know. I think when it comes to like in real life women and singers, I don't really think they try to make them look too young in a creepy way, because I think if they ever try to make them look overly young, it's usually kind of ironic. Again, I'm going to bring in the Kyari Pammy thing. Like, no one is under any illusion with her, but you know, it's kind of fun. It's cute because she's doing that look. I wanted to bring up Wasita, because Wasita, obviously the group who Loon has recommended to both of us. I'm really enjoying Wasita. I first heard them in 2019, and then he brought them back into my attention recently. I know you had a rather interesting experience with them, because their whole thing is very cutesy. They dance around like with cat ears and everything, but I have no idea how old Wasita are. But I would take a safe guess that based on how Japanese women age, that they probably are much older than they look, and they're probably in their late 20s or something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
From what I've been told, there's a couple that are mostly in their 20s. I think there's 1 or 2 members that are 17. I think the youngest one is.
I'm just gonna Google it while we're talking and see if I can find out.
While we're talking.
But I mean, one of the reasons, I mean, this is the thing. So, okay, maybe I'll approach it from this angle. The reason why I think I could enjoy Wasita more than I could enjoy Sakura Gakuin. No disrespect to Sakura Gakuin, but to me, Sakura Gakuin, like I said, I think it's the journey, and I think I better understand now why you said you would want to watch all of the stuff, because it's more about seeing them become the celebrities. It's more about the journey. But for me, like, if I see something like Wasita, it feels like a finished product. They all are very sort of well-honed performers. They're singing, their dancing is really good. You know, they're just on the money. And so the cute thing is just kind of for fun, because why not? And because it's innocent and it's lighthearted, and it really just, yeah, there's no pressure on it. It's just kind of relaxed. Whereas with Sakura Gakuin, there was always that thing over my head of, okay, this is the road to somewhere. This is not an end product. This is always just like it's the school, it's the prep to get to that place.
I suppose I think with Watsuta as well, like they always make me feel slightly uncomfortable, because the way that they're because the way that they're portrayed is a lot more mature, and like you said, Asian women look a lot younger than they are. So when some of those shots actually come on, I'm kind of like, wow, I'm like, bloody hell, like, you know, like I can't, it's my brain.
They're pretty sexy, yes.
Yeah, it's my brain. It's like,
check ages.
Yeah, they're pretty sexy. And I'm like, it's that uncomfortable feeling of they look way young. I shouldn't be feeling this as well. It's like, I think it's like that horrible mix between the both a little bit. And then you realize, like I said, that we're all 20 odd, and you're like, oh, it's okay.
I mean, so I would go back to that thing, though. I think that we have to keep in mind that the intention of the person is important. You know, if you're a sort of person who you look at them, and for me, one of the reasons you can look at the girls from like Wester, and they can kind of be quite attractive, is you look at them, and even though I'm still checking the ages now, you do look at them and you kind of go, well, look, I know that you're clearly an adult. There are certain telling factors, you know, I mean, so I get it. I mean, we said earlier about when we were looking at videos where we weren't sure of the ages, and it can be a bit weird, but I don't think, so just give you an idea. I checked their ages. They all range in age between 22 and 24. Yeah. So yeah, which I would say, I mean, I guessed into their maybe late 20s just because of the fact that I've been fooled by this kind of thing before. They always end up being older than I expect. But isn't that always true, though, isn't it? Half the time when you find like a performer attractive, they usually end up being older rather than younger, which I think kind of demonstrates that in our brains we are thinking the right way anyway. Yeah. But, I don't know. I think there are some people who... there's always going to be some people who are a little bit creepy, but in general, most of us are fairly balanced about this subject.
Yeah, I think Japan's improved as well. Again, you probably might know more about this than I have, but I'm pretty sure they raised the age limit in Japan recently. I believe it was 14, and they've upped it to 16.
Really?
Yeah.
I'll just quickly check that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that took effect at some point early this year.
Yeah, so from 13 to 16. Yeah.
13 to 16. And I feel like that's a big step. I feel like they're slow. It's gonna take age. It's gonna take years with Japan. I think because they're slower and more stubborn than most countries. at changing the stuff that they like. But I feel like changing
The stuff that they like.
Yeah.
That was a bit of a stinger on that. They like 13-year-old girls. It's like, okay.
But yeah, like like again, you hear some horror stories about obviously idol girls and obviously like execs and stuff like that as well. You know, those stories have been around since forever.
But
then
I
again,
think that's more of a universal issue of like
yeah, that's in Hollywood and
execs
sorts,
anywhere in the world.
yeah.
Yeah, you look at Hollywood, you get your Harvey Weinsteins. I'm pretty sure the K-pop industry. Well, I mean, I dated a woman years ago who was Korean, and she was going through the acting industry, and she was just like, she decided to move to UK because she said like the Korean acting industry, the way she described it, I should point out, but this from her description is like she didn't want to have to sleep with people just to get jobs. And she was like, no. So she's like, I just left there pretty early. I did my study, and then every job I wanted to get was pretty much there was something rather unpleasant added to the deal. So, I can only imagine that the music industry probably, again, I don't know this, but, when you hear it firsthand from someone you've lived with for a few years and you're in a close relationship with, then I'm inclined to believe that she was telling the truth, that there's at least some creepy stuff going on there. So it's
no doubt
there is going to be stuff like that, but we can't speak on that. We don't know on that, but we just hope that hope that's minimal. But I think from the side of just as an artwork, yeah, I mean, I can enjoy Wester. With baby metal, and if anything, I kind of wish that they would just play a little bit more towards the sort of cute side of things, because now they're adults, it feels much more okay for them to do it. I feel much more comfortable. It's like if they want to sort of like be a little bit cutesy, I'll be okay with it. But you're all adults, it's fine.
Yeah, I mean, baby metal are getting older now, and to be fair, they got again controversial opinion here, but they got 3 absolutely stunningly beautiful women now, so you could probably go on either direction. But I don't think they
one day there'll be pension metal.
Pension metal.
Give me dentures.
So yeah, I know. Give me dentures. No.
But if anything, I don't know. Because I didn't notice Sakura Gakure and stuff until retrospect. But I think for me, like it's always sort of weird when you're like, oh, this is a nice group, and then you see them as kids, you're like, I don't know, it's strange, isn't it? It's like very weird, because you kind of feel like their entire life has been on camera. I'm not going to get too much into this subject, but I will briefly sort of pass by the whole subject of Yui, because Yui metal. I said this before. I know there's a lot of people who argue otherwise. I don't think any of us know what happened with Yui metal. I'm willing to entertain any conspiracy theories people have, but I always believe you don't know until you know. And for me, I always thought the most realistic option was that she just realized, I've been on camera my entire life. I've never just been away from this. And she probably looks back at her childhood herself and said that was really fun, but it was all on camera. And so she probably just said at some point, I think she got ill, had a little bit of time off, and she probably just smelt the roses and said, you know what? I'm good. I had that. And I want to disappear. I want to go.
To be honest with you, with the money she probably earned from like the first 2 baby metal albums,
exactly,
she was probably had enough to retire anyway. To be fair.
So she could just, with that money, if she invests it well, and let's face it, stereotypes aside, but Japanese people tend not to be ones for splurging their money. If she invests it well, maybe speaks to someone who used to work at the same company for her, put some of that money into a good savings account they help her get, looks after it, she could live off of that for the rest of her life. Maybe she find like a nice guy, settles down, has a family, goes live somewhere in Okayama or something, out in a field, has a lovely life. So I think that's the other side of these sort of celebrity kids, is that when they're growing up for it, it's so I think it's a complicated subject. I mean, like, so we got the issue of one of the overbearing ones is the way that anime sort of has given overseas people an odd view of what Japanese does with age. And I think anime is as usually as a sort of an over dramatization of what people actually think rather than the reality of it. Plus cartoons don't represent reality particularly
exactly
well. But you've got that, then you've got like the young idol groups, which is a kind of a Japanese thing. I think you've got the fact that in Japan, a country where, let's face it, even the language is very honorific. Anyone who's older than you speaks to them in a totally different way, therefore showing some giving youth its own credible quality as well is kind of the flip side of that, you know.
I think
there's a lot of aspects that
yeah,
go
there's
into this.
like you said, there's a lot of aspects. I don't think the age limit that the country had for the longest time particularly helped. I think like again the anime, the art style.
I'll be honest, I didn't even know about that, which is interesting. So I wonder how many people do know about that, because that would probably, it might be a bit weird.
It might be. I think it's a lot weird for everybody who's in the West that finds that out the first time. They're like, "What, really?"
Do you think many people knew that? Because I mean, well, luckily it's not true anymore. But do you think many people knew that?
I didn't. When I started my channel, I had no freaking idea. I was in the naive state that everything everywhere around the world was like 16 plus until I found out we actually did a night on it in the Discord, and we found out some places that the age limit was like 13, 12.
Can you just not say we did a night on it when you
No, because I can't remember what the subject was, but we were talking about like age limits. I think we hit a video that was on the borderline of this conversation that we're having now, and we were like, "Oh God, what was the age limit of this?" You know, we were all kind of like discussing it a little bit, and then we found out obviously Japan was 13. I can't remember. I think it's like I want to say I can't remember which country it is. I think it's an African country, but I think the age limit there was like 12 or 10 or something like that. And I was just like,
we all know there are some countries that have like, there's going to be some countries where there's going to be no limits and stuff. So that's an unfortunate case. I think again, Japan, because it's looked at as a developed, they call it, I think you can call it a first world country anymore, but what I mean, like, a developed country is seen in that light that it should have, certain things. So I didn't know that, but I'm glad it's 16.
And I think the thing over with Japan as well is, like I said, like because the anime is always depicted to be younger than it actually is. Idol bands are always predicted to be younger than they are. Like we touched on, Japanese women that are in their 20s look much younger than they are. And I think if you're looking at that from the outside, as many Westerners do, without kind of knowing the context behind it, it looks dodgy. There's no denying that it looks dodgy.
I think that must be, in a way, part of what it comes down to is the fact that, so in Japan, I feel like
it looks dodgy to the standards of like America and like the UK, where we
again, I don't know whether I could regard it as standards or whether it's just the way that the society works, because I mean there's certain things like the age of consent, which is just, I think that is a standard. There should be a certain standard to how developed you want someone's brain to be before they're making a decision like that. However, when it comes to other things, I think that's probably where the issue of standards comes in. Like, so for example, there was, I didn't follow up on this much, but there was a woman who apparently, I think she was British, who came to Japan, and she was apparently doing some documentary on maid cafes. And apparently her entire motive when she was interviewing people, maids and things, apparently the whole thing came off like she already knew what she wanted to say. Like she was like, this is bad, this is wrong, women shouldn't dress up cute to entertain men. And so it was apparently like she decided, well, this is they need to come up to our standards. And it's like, no, you don't understand that actually your standards are the problem, because the standard in Japan is, do you know what, if a girl likes looking cute, let her look cute. If she likes wearing sort of cutesy things, if she wants to do something entertaining, it can be a road to do other things. A lot of those girls go from being maids to being in idol groups, which, what you think of that's fine, but it's a form of entertainment. Band maid. I mean, let's face it, Miku was a maid. And my point is that I think this is probably part of the issue, is that there's a confusion between what is a standard, what is decency, like, an age of consent. Getting young girls and saying, well, look, if I'm going to have a young girl performing, she needs to perform for her talent and for people to, respect the sort of cute side and the innocence, rather than we're going to sexualize this young girl. It needs to, those are standards. And then everything else is just, well, what do you find heartwarming and cute? And I mean, even in this conversation, you've mentioned something to me about Sakura Gakuin, which I would have perhaps found slightly weird, but then by describing it, I've gone, actually, no, you know what? I get that is actually kind of a cute thing to do. And so I think we're always chopping away at that, but it is, I think, again, you've hit the nail on the head.
We have to have more of like a maternal instinct more than a sexualized one.
And there's nothing, So again, so long as like with anything, I mean, if you can like look at a group and find them sexy, but the minute you start taking it too seriously and becoming a stalker, well, then that's a problem. You can look at a group and have a maternal thing, but the minute it starts getting too much, and you start having, I don't know.
Well, this is the thing. There's always going to be people. There's always going to be people out there that take it too far, and those are the people that take it too far are make the rest of us look bad, basically. You know.
And I think that's the issue from outside is people are seeing. Or well, I think they only ever hear about that.
No, that's it. 99% of the good things nobody cares about because nobody reports on that. But you always hear the 1% of the shit that goes on everywhere. That's the news for you. They don't want to report on good stuff because that doesn't get clicks. You know, they're gonna report the fucking bad crap that happens. And the one the standout title, the one that grabs your attention. That's the shit you see and you hear about, but not as much. You know, all the rest of the good things that goes on in the industry. A little bit.
There's a point I want to bring up, but shall we stop and restart this quickly? Just so
we're going to run out of time, so watch the magic editing happen again.
Here comes part 3.
Here comes part 3.
And we're back, Neon.
The magic of editing. Yeah. How did that happen?
We'll get onto your background again in a minute as well. So yeah, one of the things we were really approaching there was the fact that when you're looking at people overseas, a lot of the time they only see like the hyper negative or the hyper exaggerated. I think most people notice without me telling you, but you know, there was a period where there was a lot of Japanese, you know, celebrity does a holiday to Japan. Let's see, real Japan as shown from the eyes of a celebrity TV show. And then that morphed into YouTube. Oh, here's my blog of life in Japan. And it would always be, well, most of the time, it would be something which is based on exaggeration rather than reality. I hate to say it, but 90% of those videos you watch about my life in Japan, it's the sort of thing where if you actually lived in Japan, you'd be like, yeah, you know, half the problems you're expressing are very easy to get around. And, you know, people like, or it's like you just didn't think before you came, you know. So I think people like to dramatize, and that's how you make media. There's nothing wrong with that. But the problem is that as a result, you know, in other countries, people only hear about, obsessive Japanese stalker, or, you know, this person was a pervert, or, you know, this is like some crazy Japanese game show where half naked Japanese women, you know. So as a result, I think people have this very extreme view of Japan, which is not particularly accurate. Yeah, Japan has a lot of extreme stuff, but it's not.
So what you're saying is I can't fondle women on Japanese trains. So that's where we're going with this.
Well, you can, but perhaps only the one time, and then, you know, then you're going to be like, your passport won't work next time you try and come in, and you might find that you have to try and come in quite soon because they'll be forcibly making you leave. But you know,
I love how Howard just outright says, "Well, you can once.
You can do anything once." By the way, can we just point out what I really like about your well, I say like dubiously about your background. First of all, you've now gone for a background where, despite the gigantic jugs that seem to be rather foremost in this, is none of those characters look particularly young. And I'll even go on to say that the fella on the left, it looks like a fella on the left. It doesn't look like a woman. It looks like a member of a hair metal band on the left. There's not a particularly feminine look on that one. So yeah, I would suggest that the characters behind you are not at any risk of being accused of looking too young.
No, to be honest with you, when I was going through the Google search for this one, I picked this one out on purpose because they looked older than the other ones. Also, remind me to clear my internet browser history after this, because my God.
I don't think that there's enough power on the UK national grid to clear your browser history.
Probably not.
Dark, like sort of like mechanical sound starts in your basement. The history must be cleaned.
So, like I said, I can't fondle women on trains. Like that means like
one time. I wouldn't recommend
that's like every hentai ever has just lied to me.
That's why that's a genre. It's because people are gonna. It's like, you know, it's like, well, GTA is not, well, you know, I do this because I'm practicing to do it in real life. It's like, no. People do it specifically because they know, don't do that in real life. So don't let the hentai fool you. But yeah, no. In all seriousness, though, I think this kind of goes back. As much as we joke about it, that's the joke. You know,
That's the joke. Yeah.
This extreme is what people see the extremes of Japan, and so I think they assume that the Japanese don't have balance. So they say, Japanese are just into crazy stuff all the time. It's like, no,
Tentacle monsters.
Yeah, exactly. It's like they see technical monsters. They see, like, there was that whole phase where it just to be every time you go on YouTube, it was like some Japanese game show. They'd find and half of them weren't real. A lot of them were actually fake Japanese. I mean, there was a Japanese game show that was supposedly put out there, which was apparently, look at this very sexual Japanese game show. And it turned out, no, that was literally just a porno that was supposed to look like a game show, and so everyone thought it was a real game show. There's been all kinds of stories of this happening in the past where Japan, because they have a lot of stuff, because there's access to a lot of very strange things in Japan, that people assume that is the norm.
Do they know that? Like, how, like, from the inside out, obviously you being in Japan yourself, how do they kind of like appreciate that? Do they lean into that at all? Like, full well knowing that us Westerners come looking for the entertainment?
I think that, and obviously I'd be willing to both be corrected by case examples, or perhaps anyone Japanese who wanted to say otherwise. But my description would be, first of all, you do have a mixture, and it's not just generational, but between people who are more internationally minded, who've maybe studied abroad or been abroad or focus a lot on abroad things, who maybe have a more balanced view. But there is still a very large swath, or swath, depending on how you pronounce it, whoever you are, of people who, you know, like in most countries, see things very much from the Japanese perspective outwards. And I think most of them do not understand that Japan in those ways is seen as being weird. I think as well, it would also be worth pointing out that this is all a byproduct of what I would usually describe as a positive thing. I said before about you get the buttoned up Japanese person, and the counter to that is the fact that because they're very responsibility based, and all that at work, and they have all these kind of things, be married by a certain age and all this kind of stuff, that as a result, when they have their free time, they're much more open. I mean, some of the people who I know who are most into idol stuff are married with kids, and I always kind of think that's kind of a bizarre thing for me, but I kind of get it because they know how to draw the line in their life. So most Japanese people are used to there being a lot of things out there, and probably less things are considered unacceptable. It's like, because people are into so many weird and different things in Japan that it's not like in the UK where it's like, oh my god, you're into 80s music, oh my god, you're so retro. It's like in Japan, it's like, oh, 80s music is just different type of music. Now, that's not to say there aren't standards. Sorry, I rabbited on a bit, but this is an interesting point. Actually, again, not standard. I don't want to say the word standards because we clarified that earlier. But there are certain levels that people have. There was a really interesting survey I saw once, which was asking a large number of Japanese women, and this was not internationally focused, but just Japanese women, what special interests would you find most off-putting in a potential partner? And there was all kinds of things, like sort of geeky things like being into trains, collecting figurines, being into idol music. And I believe that being into trains was considered not a problem at all. So if you're a train spotter, which in the UK is like an ironically always seen as a very geeky thing, train spotting would not be considered. So I think it's probably associated with working on the train line, which is a good job. But yeah, it was like that wouldn't be considered so bad. And I remember the bottom one was anyone who collects figurines of anime girls was like the lowest one. It was like that would be considered quite off-putting to a potential partner.
So what you're saying is I have a chance.
It's like, you're going to be out there with your anorak and your notepad. It's like, get some fucking serial numbers. I mean,
let me just Google search where the next train is.
So, I come from the UK. We have some pretty exotic trains. And, they always arrive late, if you know what I mean.
Have you tried to fit my train in your tunnel?
What? I had subtlety going in the punchline, and you.
Have you not worked this out yet? Howard's like subtle as anything. I just come in like a freight train.
So don't say like a freight train, Neon. Don't say like a freight train. You and subtlety need to. You fucking have a restraining order, clearly. But I mean, so it's, you know, in Japan, it's not like everyone's just numb to oddity, but, you know, so people have different levels on which they view it. But, you know, I think if they went to most overseas countries, they would probably be slightly amused by how comparatively unquirky the general set of interests are. So yeah, I think that the Japanese don't realize that, which is probably why, and why shouldn't they lean into their own culture if it works? But I think that's probably why they lean into a lot of things that we see in their media and probably think, wow, from an outside audience, that's bizarre. I mean, things like, you know, shamelessly, things like Wasta, why the hell not? It's entertainment, it's fun, it's uplifting. They do it. The rest of the world would look at that and go, that is really twee. You know, putting things out there, like just all this stuff, you know, the Sakura Gakuins, all of that, it's not hidden because it's I think it goes back to our earlier point, they know the intentions are good. I think if something is coming from a creepy place, you'll probably know because in Japan it'll be hidden. Yeah, if in Japan it's something that they don't, you know, they kind of keep it to the back a little bit.
Here we go. Howard's secret hobbies being unlocked here. Go on, tell us more.
I'm really trying to think of an example, but I mean, you know, you're kind of looking at things that are more pornographic, obviously.
Yeah.
But you know, I think as a general, the fact there are many things that we wouldn't consider in the West to be, we would perceive there's a potentially dark angle to them. Those things are usually kind of published okay, you know, sort of like your Sakura Gakuins and things like this, because of the fact that in Japan they go, well, look, we know that there's nothing sinister going on here, and we know that the vast majority of people who are into it are not sinister either. There will be some, but there will be some in any situation, as you pointed out earlier. There's nothing you can do to avoid that. So rather than painting everyone as being a creep, they go for it, and they just say that, yeah. It's just
so what you're telling me is there is no real tentacle monsters going around Japan as we speak.
This interview's over.
Howard can take off his skin now.
just slowly, like something comes up from behind the window. It's like, oh shit, those people downstairs are at it again, trying to make more octopi.
Yeah, I'd be interested to know what the comments are down below as well. Let us know. Like, obviously, we tried to go a little bit in depth in here, but there's going to be things we missed, angles we've missed, topics that maybe we've missed that you guys would want to discuss. So, tell us your thoughts. That'd be interesting.
I'd also say that this is a subject that I wanted to approach on various things before. Neon, like, the minute I spoke to Neon about it, it was like, yeah, that's a good topic to talk about. There's a lot to say about that, and we knew this was going to be a long one when we kicked it off. But for me, we approach this today very much the way we approach our videos normally, which is we just had a conversation. Yeah, it's like there wasn't a huge form. There's a couple of things that I knew I wanted to bring up, but we talked about it. So I don't want anyone to sort of like, you know, try and sort of extrapolate too much from it. What I want you to do is I want you to help us decide where to take the conversation next. You know, what did we maybe not touch on, or what interesting points you want to see us develop further? Because I think we could definitely get a second part out of this if there's things that you guys want to bring. We're really looking forward to the comments, because this was just a chat, but it's a really interesting subject. And as I said earlier, there are so many things affecting this, and there's no black and white, right and wrong, but it is very interesting how, you know, it's colored our opinion of Japanese music because we got into Japanese music. It's very interesting seeing that difference from inside and outside of Japan. It's definitely a topic that has a lot of things coming from it that we can discuss. Sorry, I thought I'd just point that out.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you, man. Yeah, just let us know if you want a part 2 to this, or even if there's any other sensitive subjects you'd want us to talk about, or maybe a little bit something that's not, you know, black and white and a bit of gray as well. Then yeah, fling us the request. Let us know in the comments down below. We thrive off your guys' suggestions as well. And this is not just purely a music channel as well. You know, we do want to tackle other stuff, just not in and out of Japan, but all areas and different
brains to the east.
I know, everything to do with the east. So let us know in the comments down below, because we feel like you guys have been amazing. You'll be like, oh, yeah, Neon, this is an amazing video, well done, or it's a would you prick comment.
I'm losing Neon. Oh, there he is. He's back.
There we go. It's
whatever you just said, I didn't hear, which makes it all the more entertaining.
Which makes it more entertaining. But sometimes I feel like you guys forget to let us know what you guys want to see on the channel as well. So don't forget to put that in the comments. To be honest, is there anything you want to add, my man, before we sign off?
No, that was I really enjoyed that. And as I say, it was nice as well to you although it's a subject I've spoken about in Dribs and Drabs a lot before, I think it's definitely a subject to put in one place. And you gave me things I hadn't thought about before, which was great. So definitely I think there's a lot to get from this topic. And I think it's an important one as well. You know, we all care about and want the best for the artists, whatever age they are. So it's a very interesting topic. In fact, actually, that's one topic we might pick up on, if anyone wants us to, is those super young like band artists. You know, when you see like someone on YouTube, like 4-year-old playing guitar and stuff, and you're like, I wonder what led to this. You know, so that's a subject we could pick up on as well. I'd love to know what you think about that. But anyway, we'll leave it for now. We'll catch up more. Thank you so much, Neon. Thank you guys at home, and until we see you very soon, keep your ears to the east. No, that's not the east. That's your dick.
Depends which way they're pointing.